he's really in the last 10 years consolidated his power and his grip on the party. But one thing to bear in mind with the Chinese system, the party is the dominant institution, and it is an institution that can limit and restrict the leader's power. I'm not predicting that's necessarily going to happen, but it's not a rump dictatorship, as it were. The party has 97 million members, and the most important thing for the party is the party continues.
The former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd expects we'll see Xi in the seat for a long, long time. Do you agree?
Well, Kevin's a much more courageous individual than I am. I wouldn't make those sorts of predictions. China has still got a lot of issues it's dealing with, a lot of problems. Xi himself has made a number of serious policy miscalculations that are recognised as such. The economy is flagging. So yes, he'll be back at the end of next week after the Congress concludes, but I wouldn't be speculating on his longevity.
China's zero COVID policy is badly hurting the economy, and there's a massive property downturn. The world's second largest economy seems to be losing the confidence of international trading partners.
Well, also I think it's losing the confidence of its own people. Look, this year China's economy will be lucky to grow at 3%. That's partly because of the disruption and lack of confidence created by the capricious zero COVID policies. It's also because of the massive deleveraging in the property sector, which alone accounts for over 20% of GDP. And of course, there are a lot of international headwinds economically as well as politically. This is not the sort of economic outlook that we've become familiar with China. And China could well be one of the slowest growing economies in the region this year. So this is a big adjustment for China, and it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate their way through this.
China's slowdown has big ramifications for us as a trading partner. How badly could that impact our economy as the world hurdles towards recession?
Well, we're enormously dependent on the Chinese economy. It takes 36% of Australia's exports, particularly in the bulk commodities like iron ore. This has been a tremendous boost to the Australian economy at a time of general weakness domestically and internationally. So, yes, I mean, this has been a long-standing view. Anything that harms China's economic growth will ultimately harm Australia's economic growth. And as much as we talk about diversification, the reality is that the comparative advantage, the complementarity between the two economies is so strong that diversification will be at the margins, nothing wrong with that, but ultimately we will remain very heavily dependent on China's economic growth.
Dr. Roby, how troubling is Xi's no-limits partnership with Putin in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
Well, I think there's been a tendency to exaggerate in the West the significance of that statement. China and Russia have deep, long-standing historical differences, animosities. It's only in the recent decades they've settled some very long-standing border issues. There's deep mutual mistrust. So I describe the situation at present between China and Russia as really being a concert of convenience.
This is all while political tensions here fester too. Of course, Penny Wong has had a couple of meetings with her Chinese counterpart in the last month or so. But can the gulf over human rights abuses by China be closed?
Look, we've always had differences with China over human rights issues. It's a fundamental difference between us in the relationship. We're not alone. Many, many other countries in the Western liberal world have exactly the same concerns. Only Australia has found itself in a position where it doesn't have regular high-level official exchange and interaction. Things have improved, as you said, since Labor was elected in May. It's extraordinary, though, that a leader from China or from Australia hasn't visited the other's country since 2017, over 5 years. It used to be annually. And in those meetings, that's where we raise issues of human rights. For many years, I chaired the bilateral human rights dialogue between Australia and China. We would be very forthright in the issues we would raise, but we were also of the view that megaphone diplomacy was not the way to make advances. And I think that dialogue did make advances. Sadly, it was scrapped as our relationship with China span out of control under the Morrison government. But we really need to get back to a proper exchange with China in order to be able to prosecute our interests in seeing a improved situation in China on human rights.
We've seen tensions between the US and China rise as well. The US this week imposing a ban on selling microchips to China and wanting its allies to do the same. What's the end game here?
Well, it would be great to know from the Americans what the end game is. I mean, essentially what we're witnessing is the dominant global power resisting the ascendant power. This is almost a Thucydidean trap scenario. Now, it's quite usual, doesn't happen on every occasion, but it's quite usual historically that the dominant power will resist the ascendant power, the rising power. This is what we're witnessing now, and it is in response to a massive power shift across the Pacific from the United States to China. So we can expect this to continue, and the high-tech area is just another manifestation of it. The issue for us, though, in Australia is what is the value in us joining in this contest. It's most unusual for small states to align themselves with either state in one of these great power shifts. Our regional neighbours, New Zealand, others have not done so, but we have glued ourselves to the hip with the United States as it contests and resists China's ascendancy.
Dr. Jeff Raby, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Rachel.